a lot of light, Maya.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome,
We're
welcome.
live.
Welcome.
We're live and in color.
As fashion exists, come on in the room.
Come on in the room. He said, "Oh, come on in the room.
Come on in the room.
Come on in the room." You guys, as you are coming in, welcome to our SoundMind panel. We are here every second Thursday of the month. We are the three studies, but every now and then we have a special guest, but you'll see our wonderful faces every second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. If you would do us a favor, click like and click share. Share this on all of your social media platforms so that other people can take advantage of what we are going to be talking about tonight. Don't be shy with your comments. If you have comments, if you have questions, please don't be shy about that. We don't know everything, and we will try to answer your questions as best we can. But whatever's on your heart concerning the topic, don't be shy. You can go ahead and share that. So we're going to get started soon. We're just waiting for a few more people to come on. And while we are waiting, I am here with the wonderful Reverend Tiffany Smith. Excuse me, Dr. Tiffany Smith.
Please.
Hold it down for the girls.
Claim it.
Hi, Ada. Hi, everybody.
And Deacon Andrea LaBou. She was one of the first female deacons to be ordained at our church. So she is a groundbreaker. Again, we are here every second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. Tonight, we're going to continue in a topic that we did last month, dispelling mental health myths. Dispelling mental health myths, because there's a lot of stuff out there that if you don't take time to research and kind of just find out for yourself, you'll walk away believing anything.
Amen.
This was a big topic. This was a big topic today. Everything I watched on TV had to do with mental health. I mean, from Good Morning America to the Tamron Hall show, all of them had to do with something with mental health. So
because it's real. It's real.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the myths, since we're talking about that already, one of the myths of mental health is that that only a few people struggle with it. We know that's not true, right?
Very.
We all know people in our families, and maybe at some point in our lives, we have been the same way. To me, a mental health struggle is nothing more than it's not a weakness. In my opinion, it's not a weakness. Is that you are vulnerable in a different way.
Yes.
And we all go ahead, Reverend Tiffany.
No, I said,
go ahead, Deacon LaBou.
That's it. Everybody's got something. Everybody.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
I think in the olden days, I remember people said, just give her a pill, she'll be fine,
Exactly.
Or, people would disappear for like a week or two, or, so we were all
disappear.
Come back with a little dazed look.
Right.
Right. So, but we all have something. And I'm so thrilled that we are having conversations about it, and we are normalizing the conversation. And this is male and female. I mean,
absolutely.
And I watched that show, Married at First Sight, and
I love that show.
Me too.
Come on, get with
Married
it.
at
You
First
gotta
Sight?
get with the program.
Really?
But one of the characters on it's the after show or something, and they showed him struggling with depression and his wife being of support, and he had a perfect description. He basically said, it's like I'm watching a basketball game. I know I have the skills to get in and play, but my body just won't allow me. And I thought, now this is a young African American man, age 26, on national TV, struggling with depression. I thought he did a phenomenal job, and he was very brave to do that. So
absolutely,
it is definitely opening up the conversation for all ages.
And I love that, because I think so many times when we are struggling with something, we're just afraid to talk about it, mainly because we think we're the only one that has those kind of struggles, because mental health is not as uncommon as we think it is. And one of the myths that I as I was looking at stuff that I didn't realize, I now know in a greater depth, is a lot of people think that when you have a mental health issue, you can't lead a normal life, you can't work a job. And we know you can.
Yeah,
because some of us would not be employed.
There would be a lot of people unemployed.
Right. Yeah. So do you guys agree with that statement?
Yeah, and I think it's the word. Like, I think when you hear mental health issues, it automatically comes with the connotation of like, oh, you're not well, you can't be productive, you can't function. But there are people that are millionaires, that are successful CEOs, that are parents, that are like business owners, leaders, clergymen, who have
Presidents.
presidents,
Ex-presidents, wink, wink.
Ex-presidents.
who live normal lives, who do what everybody else does, but they still have struggles. Deacon White said this at one of the other lives that we had, that mental health is soon going to be just as people are going to see mental health counselors as much as they see their primary care physician.
I
And
believe it.
we're moving into that direction. I think because we're starting to talk about it more and we're normalizing that it's something that everybody deals with at some capacity or another.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like, we always think of mental health as like schizophrenia and
Right.
being on medication, but it can
Right.
simply just be difficulty with transition,
Right.
or what some people consider like adjustment disorders, right? Or just when you have a grief and loss over the death, and like living after the death, that's a mental health struggle.
Absolutely.
We automatically hear, I got a mental health issue, and think that, oh God, let me not tell people that because they'll think that something is wrong with me.
Right. And people think it's a weakness. So if I have diabetes, you ladies wouldn't say you're weak because you have diabetes.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Exactly. It's not a physical health issue, it's a mental health issue.
Right.
And I think, the thing we always wanted to drive home is there's nothing wrong with getting the help that you need, and finding the courage to say, I need help.
And and I think that's part of the struggle. And I think we talked about this the last time. And I think I'm gonna coin something that Deacon Nefessa said in terms of mental wellness. Even if we change the terminology from mental health to mental wellness,
I like that.
And it feels better. It feels better. But in terms of seeking help and those type of things, sometimes we get so comfortable in living, I call it chaos and family trauma drama. We get comfortable with we get comfortable in that we don't realize that we're struggling. So some of the terminology that the professionals use, well, are you this? Are you this? No, that's not me. But when you put it in everyday language, do you have trouble getting out of bed every day? Is it a struggle for you to reach out and talk to people? Are you starting to see changes in how you relate to other people? If you do it in common, everyday, non-clinical things, people will probably relate more to mental wellness as opposed to making it mental health and something an illness. So
Right. And I think when you try to foster a persona that you're strong and have everything together, and then people look at you like that and you try to live up to that expectation, to me, people like that are the last ones to ask for help. Because it's like, I have an image to maintain. I don't want people to see me in a different way. So we know mental wellness is okay to pursue. Mental wellness. I don't know about you, but if I'm just simply having a bad day, and you know how sometimes life piles up, and you like, if one more thing happened, and if I just take a moment to talk to somebody, just vent, I feel so much better. So there's something to be said about talk therapy, just talking it out. Now I may go back to the same situation, but I feel better, and I'm going back differently because I've talked it out. Sometimes you just want to know, you know what, I'm not.
Am I crazy?
Right, exactly. I'm okay. And it's just human nature to think that when we're going through something, we're the only one in the world going through what we're going through. But we can open up the Bible and see that that's not true. So I think it's important. So how do you think you encourage people to get the help that they need?
I think that KTB had a question, and I think that wait, who is it? Denise had a question. I think this starts that conversation of what to do, right?
Okay.
Can you explain imbalances that mental health individuals deal with? And I think this is where and then Patricia said mental health is such a broad spectrum, right? So I think because it's so broad, that people are not sure, when do I go get treatment? Do I get treatment because I have physical signs of mental health? Do I go because I can't function? But I think that's waiting too long. I think that's waiting too long. I think if you wait until you're like at a tipping point, and what I tell my clients is, please don't come to me when you're in crisis.
Right.
Like, don't wait that long. Don't wait until I have to call and get you hospitalized and then circle back and get therapy for you. Come prior to that,
Right.
And to explain the chemical imbalances, it depends on the situation. This is why mental health is so broad. Like, for example, children, right? Who are born with situations like autism spectrum disorder or things like that, or ADHD. That can be more chemical. It can be based on diet, things that they're eating, genetics, things that are passed down, family history of ADHD and anxiety disorders or things like that. What the mom ate when she was pregnant, maybe not, right?
Yeah.
Brain chemistry and things like that. So it's so broad.
Yeah.
So we would say any of those things should prompt you to go get an assessment. Any of those things, not just not categorizing, well, I'm not sick, or I don't feel crazy and I'm still able to go to school and work, so maybe I don't need help. No, you should still go.
Right.
You would feel a whole lot better talking to someone and getting an assessment rather than throwing it away and saying, you know what, I'm not them. I'm not hearing voices. I'm not seeing I'm not seeing things.
Right.
I'm still working every day. That may not be your indicator that you need help. It may be, like you said, Sister Deacon LeBeau, like it may be, I'm having trouble getting up. I'm a slow starter. I used to be able to get up and have all of this energy, and I noticed a decline in my energy levels. I noticed I'm sad every day. I noticed that I feel like I'm in my head and I'm not as productive as I used to be. I'm having difficulty focusing or concentrating. Well, that may to you be checkpoints that something's wrong. So take those as indicators for you in particular that it's time to go talk to someone or get evaluated.
And and sometimes I work with clients that how do I say this, didn't know they were so unhappy until they were happy.
Oh, wow.
And that's a challenge because I said we get comfortable living in chaos. And if my life has always been a series of chaos or been traumatized, I don't realize it until I come out of it. And sometimes it takes someone that we love to help us to do that. Reverend T, when you're talking about some of those indicators, it could be something that I'm yelling at the kids all the time. Something like that was, what's going on with me where I'm having that relationship with my children that I feel as if I'm out of control. There's no shame in it. There's no embarrassment about it. It's just, you have to make a commitment to yourself that I want to live a fulfilled, happy, peaceful life and define for myself what that feels like. And then find a path to get there, whether it be working with a professional or, like Pastor P said, in terms of talk therapy or talking to someone and realizing I am not alone in this journey. Sometimes it could just be going to a support group and getting support. And sometimes it could be actually sitting with a clinician and getting some assistance. Yep.
Absolutely. But I have found in my life that with people that it was apparent that they needed to start a mental wellness journey, that they don't see themselves, they're not objective enough about themselves to be able to say, I need help. So how do you get somebody that you see needs to go in that direction? How do you get them to see, especially when they're adults and you can't make them do it? How do you get them to see, look, and I'm going to support you in this, but we need to go get you some help. Because I think the average person is like, something simple. Somebody says, you have an attitude all the time. I ain't got no attitude. What you mean I got an attitude?
You've been talking to my husband.
That's funny. So sometimes it takes an outsider to see it, but then how do you get that person to see it and then want to do something about it?
Right.
Because I know plenty of people that, I wish my cousin would go get some help. The whole family can see they need some help. It's nothing wrong with going to get therapy, but they just won't do it. And like Reverend Tiffany, to your point, you said you to encourage people not to wait until they're in a crisis to come. I find a lot of times that's where it happens because right, and that's the sad part. So I guess what we're saying, and I'm answering my own question, if you see little flags now,
do something now.
Be strong enough to do something for yourself. Forget about everybody else. Do it for yourself, because we can all benefit from talking to people.
Yes.
And then it's okay to praise God and get therapy. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
And I see Denise also said, can you suggest some holistic ways of dealing with depression, mental health, rather than medication? You know, that is something I think in this platform, for liability reasons, I don't want to lose my license on this live, y'all. All right. So let me just
I was like,
Mama got to eat. Mama got to eat.
I got to eat and live. Okay.
And I was gonna cut you off.
That's what, excuse me, we can't hear you, Reverend Tiffany. We can't hear you.
I'm frozen, y'all. I can't.
Like this.
So let me give this disclaimer that I'm going to say this, but it is not to negate talking to a professional. Right. Okay. I'm not a psychiatrist or a physician. So take this from a grain of salt. Okay. I said it. It's
recorded. We got it.
I think that there are ways that you can do things individually to help with any kind of depression or anxiety, such as getting out in nature, right? So that works for some people, getting out into nature and having a meditative walk, doing yoga, exercising, taking multivitamins, getting your weight down, watching your sugar and fatty foods. Like there are very good ways to help kind of get your dopamine levels up and your serotonin, and watch out for all of cut out all of those medication needs. However, there are some people who absolutely need some kind of medication.
Right. Because of a chemical imbalance.
Right. Because there is a chemical imbalance, and that could be for different reasons, such as traumatic brain injury or a seizure disorder or epilepsy. So I would not tell that person to not take medications that their neurologist is telling them to take, because, their hallucinations. I think I'm frozen. I'm frozen.
Are you?
No, I think I'm good.
No.
Okay. Someone could be epileptic and have hallucinations or psychotic disorders that appear because of trauma. So it's definitely not a good idea for anyone to say, girl, just go for a walk. You ain't gonna need that, or pray, or use your faith and trust God and he'll take all that away. Like, yes, we have faith, but we got to be smart and listen to people that God puts in place to help us.
Absolutely.
When we're having those types of issues.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's good. Because you're right. Some people just have a chemical imbalance. And from what I understand, sometimes our bodies are always changing.
Yeah.
So sometimes things can happen later in life.
Like menopause.
Right. It puts you in certain situations. So the bottom line is help is available for anybody that wants the help, that needs the help. And we just pray that people will be bold enough and courageous enough to know there's nothing wrong with having to pursue a mental wellness journey.
Right.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Sister Maya put something up there. Does somebody want to tackle that? Britney Spears.
Britney Spears' father just stepped down as her conservator. What advice do you have for a family member when dealing with pushback from a loved one with mental illness or other family members? And that's what that's the point I made earlier. How do you help someone that doesn't want the help? And I hear people say, and this has some wisdom in it also. People will say, well, until they're ready to get the help.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a balance. I think I've spent probably 23 out of my 25 years of working with people who don't want services. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So, one of the things in terms of the initial conversation, of course, there's no judgment, number one. But I often ask them to envision the life they want to have. What do you want to have? And then where are you now? And then how do we bridge that gap? Or what do you admire in someone else's life that you don't have in your life right now? And then, of course, going through specifics, but, how do we get you from this point to that point and what needs to happen? So it begins with sort of a self-assessment of an honest assessment, of saying that things aren't where I want them to be. And once again, there's no judgment, because I think we could all sit down and name 10 things right off the top of our heads if we want our lives to be different.
Yeah.
Right.
But in terms of, in terms of asking, someone to get help when they refuse to get help, that conversation often begins the same way. How are the relationships in your life? Are you fulfilled with that? How are what's going on? Are you happy about this? Not happy about this? And help them do a self-assessment. It is a very tough situation when you have someone who is in the middle of a severe mental health psychosis, something going on. It's real. I've been there professionally. It's very difficult, very difficult. And this is where I often suggest people get supports. There are mental health screeners. There are organizations that you can go to if someone is really struggling, that you can get assistance where you can almost get an intervention done with the person. Because if they get to the point where they're not taking care of their needs, their daily needs, or they are a threat to themselves or someone else, that is crisis mode. That is crisis mode. So it's difficult, so you walk that path of how much do I suggest and how much do I insist.
Right.
Okay.
And if you have to pull that insist thing out, you have to pull that insist power out.
That's
So
good.
that-
I'm gonna use
that
that.
is-
Ooh, use that one.
that insist thing consists of you doing exactly what for the person that is in crisis mode.
Doing
Yeah.
what you
That's
doing
you.
what I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's you calling somebody to kind of force their way into the person's life.
It's not necessarily forcing your way into the person's life, but saying, and I'll give you an example. Say you have a married couple and one of the partners is really, really struggling and it's having an effect on the children. Okay. In order for us to move forward, we have to go to family council. We have to get involved. You see, that's when they insist, because sometimes you have to take a hard line. When it becomes to that level, sometimes you have to take a hard line and say, I care for you. I care about you. I love you. I don't want this for you or for our family. So I will help you and we will do this together, but this has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's someone like in crisis and it's like you need to do something now, then look, I'll pull a card in a minute. Like, I will take your keys. I don't have no problem. I will tell a client in a minute, you need to see a psychiatrist. I don't want to take medication. You won't be seeing me until you see the psychiatrist.
That's right.
It's a liability. And
That's right.
sometimes you got to pull those cards. I will give like this brief thing that when I was a therapist with substance abuse, we had what we call like the stages of change. And this is how you understand whether someone's ready to get help. And it starts off with what they call pre-contemplation. It means the person is not contemplating change at all. They're like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not ready. Right? Then you just let them be, because you forcing them is not going to help them make the decision or even recognize that change is necessary. Because so you can encourage and drop seeds to tell them you might need to consider it, and then maybe something will switch. And that's what we call contemplation, where they say the person is in two minds, where they're starting to say, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe something does need to be done. Maybe I got to think a little harder about this and figure out what I need to be doing. Then we have preparation, where they go from being contemplating change to preparing for change. Like, okay, I'm going to make a call. let me grab my insurance card. Let me talk to someone. Let me go on Psychology Today and look at some therapists and see if there's someone that I think is a good fit. That's action. So the person goes from preparation to action, calling the therapist, setting the appointment, calling the doctor, making the phone call to a family member and saying, I need help. They go from action to maintenance. So I'm in treatment. I've made the phone call. Now I have to maintain the change that I'm learning and put to use the tools that are being given to me. But you got to know where people are in that cycle, and that's how you know how to help them. So if you see that they are willing, then you have an open door to make more suggestions if it's done the right way. Yeah. But some people are just not ready. And I think sometimes we want to force what we think they need onto them, but some people are not ready, and forcing them is only going to keep them backing up out of the door.
Right.
It has to come the right way from the right person at the right time.
So timing is everything, because my thinking is if somebody's an adult and you're doing all the pre, the post, all that stuff, and they finally get to kind of out of being pressured, okay, I'll go, and let's just say they need medication. That's part of their journey. You can't open their mouth and make them take the medication. They still have to do that on their own. So you kind of, you kind of have to walk a fine line, I think, because you don't want to push them away, but at the same time, you want to lead them to the wellness that they can have.
Yeah. And it's not, and some people are not professionals, and they try to suggest things that they don't know that the person even needs yet. So it may not be your place to tell that person that they need medications if they haven't even been evaluated yet. And maybe that's not what they need. And so we could turn someone off by creating this judgment, like, you need medicine. What? Like, how do you know? Since when did you get a license in psychiatry? You know what I mean? Yeah. And that might make the person even more sick. So now you're judging me, right? Now you know.
So now I'm really turned off.
You know, what do you think about me that you're making that suggestion? Well, I'm just saying you off.
That is not the approach we want, right? That is not it.
Please don't do that to these folks out here. They're like, you just you off.
Right. Because sometimes it could be something physical.
Right.
Now in this COVID environment, is help as available now as it was pre-COVID?
I think it's more.
I agree. I think it's more too. And it's a lot more. It's a lot more convenient. I mean, you can do telehealth, all that stuff now. That wasn't. It was probably available, but not as readily available as it is now. So I think I agree with Reverend T. It's definitely easier. There's more available, I would say.
Yeah, because people are not having to travel to get back and forth. Like, I have clients coming from all over now. Yeah, that wasn't the case before. It was in the area, but now people are clicking on Psychology Today and contacting us from all over New Jersey that never would come to this office before. So I think therapy and doctors' offices are trying their best to be flexible and open up opportunities for people to get care that wasn't available before. So this is a good time for people to take advantage of services, and they don't even got to go to the office, so they don't have the shame, quote unquote, or the embarrassment of being seen by certain people. Nobody got to know. Now you don't even have to be seen, except for the person looking right at you.
So you don't have to worry about if the receptionist knows you or the person. Okay, gotcha.
Right.
So another myth is that mental health issues are permanent. Do we agree?
Not necessarily. It depends. I think it depends. Right. It depends on what it is. Like, let's say it is something. So some of them I think can be managed, but they may not be. They may always be with us.
Okay.
Like people who are like someone who has a genetic history of grandfather, dad, and son all have ADHD.
Right.
You know what I mean? Things like that, or anxiety disorder. A lot of anxiety issues are brain, like body chemistry.
Right.
Right.
So they may
Right.
have like the shakes, like they shake and they have like
Mhm.
the nervous energy,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and there's ways to manage that, whether
Yep.
through medication or therapy or coping
Right.
skills or things that they do to help keep themselves calm, like uh, meditation and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
sometimes people require medication, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And they may always be an anxious person, but they
Right.
learn ways to manage
To
it.
Right.
to make themselves calm down.
Right.
Right.
They
Right.
learn techniques and tools to help calm themselves down. Just like people are prone to depression. Some people,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
that's for some, there is like just normal depression where sometimes you feel gloomy. And I think everybody goes through that at times.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
then there's clinical depression where
Mm-hmm.
someone
Right.
may require additional support because they tend to have like
Mm-hmm.
suicide attempts and things like that and need medication to help with the balance of their emotions. So it doesn't have to stay with us depending on, I think, what it is. And
Right.
there's seasonal stuff that happens like grief and loss that is not permanent, even though in the moment it may feel that way, right? It may feel that way when you have a significant grief,
Right.
a significant loss, and it's complex trauma
Right.
grief, like a sudden
Mhm.
death of a child or a
Mhm.
spouse and
Yeah.
Mhm.
things like that.
Mhm.
It seems like it's hard that I will always have this, but not necessarily. I don't think grief is necessarily permanent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that is one of those things that with time you learn
Yes.
how to overcome
Right.
the,
Right.
the attachment to the grief.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
somebody could. No, you
Oh, no,
go ahead.
now
No,
I
you
would
go
say
ahead, Deacon.
I would echo everything that you just said. When people say that it goes away, it comes back, whatever else, what it always to me lends a feeling or thought that I'm broken. So
Mhm.
something broken can be fixed and I move on. Something's broken and I guess so. It's so, but mental health, mental wellness is not being broken. It's
Right.
not an issue of being broken and being fixed. It's as Reverend
Right.
T said, it's an issue of managing. It's an issue of realizing, there are certain times. There are people who have seasonal depression because in wintertime,
Yeah.
That's what
they
I
have
was
to have,
going to
Yes.
say.
they have to have a certain
Yep.
light on them for a number of hours a
Yep.
day, and then
I
when
know
spring
somebody
hits,
like
they're
that.
fine.
Yep.
Absolutely,
So you can have
absolutely.
episodes of it.
Episodes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you're
Okay.
broken, so it's not mean
Right.
you're broken and be fixed. It's just who you are. And I said we started
Right.
this discussion saying we all have something.
Yeah.
We all
Mm-hmm.
have
Mhm.
something. And just going back to the comment made earlier about that we need to get away from the judgment of it all. We need to get away
Yep.
from the embarrassment of it all,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
just make it okay to be truthful about where we are and who we are, and some things that we need or may need help with. So it takes the stigma away from it. It
Yeah.
really
It
does.
does.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
does. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why if we talk to somebody, we may realize that, okay, this is just an episode that I'm having because, I had a death in the family. And
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a death in the family, so I have no point of reference for it.
Right.
Never knew how it was going to affect me. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
read this term the other day called vicarious trauma,
Vicarious
Mm-hmm.
trauma. Oh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So somebody in my family can pass away, and or somebody that I know experienced something, and I had the trauma from what they experienced. Well, who
Absolutely.
knew? Who
Right.
right.
knew that? You might just think, well, what's going on with me? It didn't touch me, but yeah, it did touch you.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's why I think it's so important to just talk to people because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
You don't know what you
vicarious
don't
trauma.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that a little more, Reverend Tiffany, because your face lit up when I said that.
That's one of my biggest issues is not being able to
Okay.
turn it off. Like when
Yeah.
other
Mm-hmm.
people are sharing things with you,
Yeah.
and
Right.
especially if it resonates with you and you
Right.
see their pain. I think a lot of people who are empaths, like they're very
Yeah.
empathetic, struggle with
Mm-hmm.
vicarious trauma. So when
Right.
someone else is hurting, they walk away with that pain as
Right.
if it
Right.
happened to them.
Right.
And you do have to like compartmentalize a little bit and not carry on people's trauma as if
Mm-hmm.
it's your experience, but that's hard to do at times,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so
That,
it's big. It's a lot of people
yeah.
struggle with that.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's when you have loving supports around you to say, okay,
Hmm.
fine, I need you to take a break. Because I tell that to people,
Yeah.
okay, I need you to take a break for just a little bit. Just sit down. sit down, because it can sneak up. It can sneak up on you, And I remember years ago, I was doing HIV counseling and working with AIDS patients, and I think I mentioned this before. I was going to a funeral once a week from January to July. I went to a funeral.
Oh my God!
And that was in the 80s, at the height of the AIDS
Woo!
epidemic.
Wow.
And it was just traumatic. These were people that I had relationships with, was counseling and so forth. And, I would come home, my husband, "You're fine." "No, I'm good. One day
Yep.
I dropped a spoon on the floor and just exploded.
Yep,
So
one little thing, right? That's my favorite spoon.
Why you have to drop?
Right.
So in that moment, I need to step back. I need to step back and take a minute. And that's when you have those loving supports to say, okay, I need you to just take a minute. It doesn't mean you're not okay. It just, I need you to just step back for a minute and just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a big indicator. Let's just say you don't have anybody, you don't have a support system right now.
Yeah.
If you know little things set you off and they didn't used to bother you before, something might be going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something simple. Send you a 900. That's a good indication. So I think we all, for mental wellness period, have to know when to back up and reset. And I don't care how busy you are. I don't care how much work you have. If you're not well, the work is not going to get done. So I think we have to learn how to just take a minute. Take a minute. But what advice would you give to people that have children? Single mother, 3 kids. How does she take a break or reset when her life is so full?
It's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. It's hard. Reverend Tim, let you start because you got 2 little ones.
It's hard. Like, you gotta find. I always tell my moms, like, sometimes you just gotta find pockets of solitude. I was like, girl. So I'll tell them, like, when I have moms like that in therapy, I'm like, girl, get you some Chick-fil-A. Don't go in the house. Stay in the car. And they be cracking up laughing. I'm like, girl, stay in the car. Go to the lake. Like, eat there. Don't share no fries. They be busting out laughing. I'm like, but you got to do it. Like, go get you a milkshake and go take it to the park bench and just be like,
even if it's just 15, 20 minutes.
I don't care if it's 15. Like, when you pull out of the drive-thru, go in a parking spot and just stay there. Eat your food
and don't feel guilty about it.
And don't feel guilty about it. Don't be like, let me save a little bit. Like, no, drink it.
Right.
Drink all of it. Go. Like, don't.
Look, so what? Your stomach gonna hurt later. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to find time. Find time for you. However.
And and it's really, really, really difficult. Really difficult. And I remember, I think I shared this with you before. When my kids were small, I was home with them and it was like, okay, I can't do this. I would have what I called a stress box, and it was just a cardboard box of toys that I put in there that they couldn't play with every day. So whenever I was having a moment, I bring that toy box off the shelf. It was like Christmas for them. Like, ooh. They would sit and play for like 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Okay. Put the toys right back in the box and put it on the shelf. So that was my stress reliever. So they didn't, and it was just enough for me to reset.
Yes.
And that's what we're not good at. We don't take the time to reset. We just go, and then we explode. We have to press the reset button from time to time. And you'll realize sometimes it may not be that long of a period. Like Reverend T said, just sitting and enjoying your Chick-fil-A in the parking lot.
And it helps.
Right.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Sometimes you feel like you're going to explode, like the monotony, especially of being like a single parent and doing the same thing every day, and remembering that as you're doing that, you're not getting time for yourself. It can breed a lot of frustration just with your life. Like, it feels like your life becomes a burden, and you don't want to feel that way. So it's like, at times you got to take a step back, like Reverend Prescott said, and just like, let me do something to just reset, right? Let me do something to take a step back. I'm at home yesterday and I'm like, Olivia, if I read Peppa Pig and the Lost Christmas List one more time, and she's like tiptoeing with her book behind her back, like, and I'm like, and I felt like my nostrils flare up, like, I can't do it. Like, I can't do it. I'm gonna snap if I read this book one more time. So I was like, Olivia, you want to go see a Julian or read it to you? And please. And she's like, okay. She's like, no, I want to take my game downstairs. I was like, okay, go.
Okay.
Go.
Good.
Mhm.
Go.
Go.
Goodbye.
Right.
Goodbye.
And I'm like,
So that gave you 10 minutes, right?
I can't do it.
Yeah.
But you got to know when
Yeah.
you're like I'm at my
Yeah.
wits. And I think sometimes when it comes to, here's one thing when we're talking about mental health that I think is important is there was a time in history where women just kind of grit and bared it and did, and people in general, men, like they worked, they had 12 kids, 15 kids, and, and they worked every day, 5, 6, 7 jobs, didn't complain about it, just did it like it was that they just did it. But they struggle. And I think it's something we don't talk about is
Yep.
how many of them kicked the dog when they came home or were
Yep.
drinking
Yep.
and
Yep.
you know, and
Yep.
and I think that now people, it maybe the mental health is a little considered taboo and political now because we're talking about it more, but I think we need to, so we
Yeah.
don't
Right.
repeat some of those same
Right.
things of go, 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 go,
Right.
go, go,
Right.
and then take it out on people
Right.
and you know, explode and die early of
Right.
heart disease.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we
Right.
need to kind of come away from that now
Yeah.
Right.
and be honest that I'm struggling. I can't do
Right.
this. I don't want to do this every day.
Right.
And you're right, Deacon LeBou, like press the reset and figure it out because
Mhm.
nobody wants to go back to that. You know,
No.
nobody
No.
wants to go back to that.
No.
And
So
I okay, go ahead, Reverend.
no,
You
go
go.
ahead, Deacon Lou, but we keep doing that. You go. No, you go.
You know what I was going to say, because Reverend T, when I hear you say, just keep going, I hear suppress.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. Keep pushing it down. Keep pushing it down.
Yep. And it's going to pop out. It's going
It has
to come
to.
out. And
everything in you got to come out, right?
Yep. And a lot of people are in therapy now because they had parents who suppressed, denied, and just kept going. So I always say, give yourself the gift of the best life and the best version that we can be of ourselves.
Right.
And that gift then translates to relationships with our children, relationships with our spouses, and then our friends and all of that.
Reverend Prescott, you said this, and I use this in therapy all the time in this message that you gave at Bible study before the pandemic, where you said pain has buoyancy, and that just and I was like,
yeah,
somebody likes something I said.
I was
I like that one.
That sometimes when you're at the beach and you take the little ball, you push it down, and you can sit on top of it, but it will it always comes back up.
Yeah.
What always comes. So when we try to push those issues aside, no, I'm all right. I'm okay because I'm Superwoman and I handle everything and I handle everybody else's problems, and we keep pushing it down. And I think that's why the worst thing you can say to somebody when they're opening up to you is, you shouldn't feel that way.
Yes. Or you're fine.
That is you're fine. Ain't nothing wrong.
You'll be all right.
You'll be okay.
You'll be all right. No, we can't minimize the feelings that people are having because we're already dealing with the stigma of it. And then you're telling me, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, I do feel that way.
And I'm saying it for a reason.
Right. So now you just put more pressure on me because you're telling me. So you think I'm going to talk to anybody else? I'm more likely to just keep pushing it down. And then when I drop the spoon, the whole house in trouble. You know what I'm saying? That's not where we want to be. That is not where we want to be. So let's end with this last topic point. Is mental health becoming an excuse? We saw a lot going on with Simone Biles, and everybody had their opinion about, her dropping out because she wanted to protect her mental health. Everybody had their opinion about that. Is mental health, in your opinion, becoming an excuse and using Simone Biles as an example or as an exhibit A? What do you think?
I have a quote here that she said, "I'm still struggling with some things, and it just sucks when you're fighting with your own head." And she was saying that I think that they were saying in this article in the New York Times that people don't realize that athletics is also a mental sport. And
right.
And she was saying that she felt like she wasn't at her best and she was making mistakes in training that's not like her because she said she was having a mental block. And I think she had a fear that if she kept going at the same rate, she would really injure herself trying to compete because she wasn't there mentally. And you have to have all of those things working together.
Right.
And I think some people will look at her and say, girl, like, this is what you built for. Get up there on that vault and do your thing. And but you got to know yourself and not be afraid. And I thought it was very courageous of her to say,
yes,
child, I'm gonna kill myself and break my neck up there trying to do this vault.
Right.
You know, because I know what it takes and what it requires to do these very dangerous spins up in the air. You do it. You know, when you're not thinking straight and your head is not in the right place. Like,
right.
not like for y'all, no, I gotta live after this. After I'm old and gray and dusty and I'm not an athlete anymore. You know,
old, gray, and dusty. Did you have to do it?
Well, I gotta be dusty. I can't be old and gray.
Gotta be dusty too.
Right. Who's gonna be wheeling me around because I can't walk no more? Right.
Right. Two words I was thinking about when you said that: pressure and perfectionism.
Yes.
Those two right there.
Yep.
Will kill you if you let it. Pressure and perfectionism.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
None of us are Superman, Superwoman. None of us. And it's okay to say, I'm not feeling it. I'm not as strong as you perceive me to be. Right. Sister girl over here needs some help.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I think the whole thing for me led to the whole conversation about judgment. You know, particularly, you know, someone in the public light, you don't know what they're dealing with. Now, I think her aunt died like while she was there 2 days before she got there. You don't know what relationship she had with her aunt. So we don't know all the in or outs, you know, but I think we just have to step away from the judgment, you know, until you walk in my shoes, then you can't judge me at all. And I'm not there to judge anyway. So we have to get away from that. We can't understand it. We don't have, but it's not for us to understand, you know, and going back to your point, you know, Reverend Prescott, perfectionism, there's nothing in no imperfect except Jesus. Okay. All right. And none of us are him last time I checked. So we have to get away from that. And that's what makes it political. That's what makes it to the point where we don't want to talk to anybody or be transparent because of the criticism that comes along with it. So whether you have an opinion about, you know, Simone or not, it doesn't matter. Who are we to judge her decision? Who are we to judge and say, well, she really wasn't sick? Who will say anything about it? You know, so just let people be who they are. Stay in your lane and manage your own life. You know, and try and be as empathetic as we can to others around us, you know, and this is particularly for the body of Christ, you know, because it's very difficult sometimes, you know, being in church because we're supposed to be holy, sanctified, and saved and not have a problem.
And especially if you have a title. Especially if you have a title, you better not ever be crying. I'm crying because I just cut some onions. What's going on with you? Why you got people, we are all human.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's easy to say that some like, oh, they just being sensitive, but you know, I don't know if you just because someone is in the public doesn't mean that they don't have struggles.
But you know, people dehumanize you.
They dehumanize you as if you're in this box, so you should know how to handle that. But if you've never been there, then we can't really say what they should be doing in that situation. And, you know, leave it to other people. Like if Simone was to go to a counselor and the counselor needed to work some things out in her and she realizes, you know what, you're right, I overreacted. Let that be the situation that helps her understand that. Like, you're right, I could have handled that differently. But
and that's growth. That's fine.
That's growth. That's fine. But let people have that. Give people grace enough to figure those things out in the setting where they need to work that out. Because we'll tell them what we think they should be doing. But how do you know? How do you know what they should be doing? You know, it's a lot of pieces that have to be put together before we, you know, try to
draw a conclusion.
You know.
and we listen to opinions of people. I'm going to say that don't matter in the sense that you don't even know them.
Right, you don't know them.
Most of the people with the opinions, you don't even know them. So, but and you're right. We don't know the ins and out of what it entails for a person to be who they are.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Ladies, our time is up. Any final words?
No, this was great.
Yeah, this was
good.
real good. It went fast.
It did go fast.
Yeah.
It did.
Great discussion. We're going to come back and do it again, of course. We'll be back the second Thursday in September, which is September 9th. Mark your calendars. Make sure you're here. September 9th at 7 p.m., probably with a different topic, right?
Yeah.
Because I think this is our third installment of that. So we want to thank you all for tuning in, for sending in your questions. And even again, if you don't mind doing us a favor and share this before you log off on your social media platforms, because I'm sure there's somebody out there that could benefit by what we said tonight. And we just pray that this was a blessing for you.
Yes.
And we hope to see you in September, if not sooner, right?
Amen to that.
Amen. Be safe.
All right, ladies.
Everybody.
Okay.
Y'all
bye.
take care out there, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.